wanted to touch base on two different things. For those of you who are in the local Granges, especially dealing with any type of reporting and anything, it was the concept of the junior or junior plus one that we're counting. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that if you have junior plus ones, you should be encouraging your secretary to let your state Granges know how many. And so that we can have a count at national, because it's important for us to get the ability to show our impact and potentially get grant funding or funding from other people. So that was that part. And I was going to ask if anybody needed a background on what the plus one program is or info about chartering a junior Grange, but I'm pretty sure most everybody here knows how to do that. So
I actually don't know what the plus one is. We don't have a junior one at our chapter. If you don't mind sharing that with me, I'd like to learn.
Yeah, sure. So for a long time, 1888, Junior Grange was established by the National Grange as a division of the order for kids 5 to 14 to have their own meetings and their own events and their own projects and things. And that went along just like Grange, and the idea of having 13 or more members, et cetera, for a number of years. Then at some point, there was a ruling that allowed state presidents to allow a chartered junior Grange to come about if there was 7 or more kids of that age bracket. And then in 2014, I believe it was, the program was established that you could have just one-off like junior person 5 to 14. So maybe you have a grandkid, or you only have one, family of that age group in your Grange. And so those kids can now take part in all the contests and programs that are offered nationally and typically in all the states. I haven't heard of a state that declines them, and technically they probably shouldn't, since the bylaws say they're eligible. So if you have a 5 to 14, you can provide them information about participating in any of the stuff that we have available. They're even allowed to run for ambassador, which we've had one at the national level who's won the ambassador stuff. And so it allows you to be able to find somebody in your local Grange to serve as a mentor, just like they would if you had a chartered junior Grange. But those 1+s could be mentored by, like, one is somebody's grandparent, and somebody else is mentored by a completely different person. In theory, you can have mentors that are maybe connected to that child in a different way. There's still the suggestion, though, that anybody who's obviously dealing with those kids has the background check. And I don't know, Betsy, you might want to weigh in here. If it's one kid and it's grandma who seems to be the mentor, if they really need to have the background check because it's their grandchild, but if they would ever deal with any other kids in the program, they certainly should have it.
Okay, well, thank you. That clears that up a little bit. I was just curious, since we don't have junior members and stuff.
Yeah, and I think the nice part about it is those kids now get to participate in camps and different talent contests and things at the state level, where you would have had to go drag a whole bunch of kids that might not have any orientation towards Grange previously together to have a junior program. So they can meet other kids from across the state and take part in different things. So and then just a reminder that at 7 or more, a state president can authorize chartering a junior Grange. 13 is that kind of magic number still, but without the state authorization for something special, a special dispensation. And there's not a requirement that once you get 7 or 13 that you charter them into a junior Grange. It's certainly a nice thing to do because they get to run their own meetings. They get to kind of have some of that. But we have had some concern in California, specifically, where they don't really recognize anybody under the age of 18 as having any authority to vote on things. So California right now is not chartering any junior Granges. They're all considered 1+s. So I don't think that has migrated over here yet, thank goodness. But John, do you have any junior Granges, chartered junior Granges active in the state? No.
Not right now, no.
Okay. Any in Illinois or Michigan?
Illinois has 3
chartered junior Granges?
Yes.
Nice.
Cool. And I don't remember if they've been reported on the secretary's form, but just as a heads up, whether they're juniors active in a junior Grange program or whether they're 1+ members, they should be counted on that like final column. It doesn't add any cost or anything. It just gives us a count each quarter. So if your local Grange is the one sponsoring that junior program, junior Granges don't fill out their own quarterly reports. So you would be making sure to include those. Susie, you guys have a couple of chartered junior Granges in Oregon that are going, right?
No.
No. We
have a state junior Grange, which, yeah, it only happens at convention and that. We've had a couple get close, but they graduate out before they get enough in. So they keep being in the 8, 9, 10 range.
Makes sense. And Eileen, I know that you've got one possible at this point in Idaho.
Yes, that's true. We're working on it.
Do you have any other chartered ones right now?
No, we don't.
Okay, good. So I'm glad Betsy's on because one of the other things that I always try to give you guys updates about if there's been any changes, movement on anything, just good heads up, is that there are things called president's rulings or master's rulings that state presidents can ask the national master to look at the bylaws and give an interpretation, because sometimes just things don't read very clearly, or something may not quite fit a situation as it's laid out in the bylaws and you're not sure if it counts or not or where it goes. So Eileen actually had a question that she was forwarding last week, and Betsy was able to give a ruling that was part of it was asked for by the delegates last year, and part of it was something that went with Eileen's question. So Betsy, did you want to give a quick overview of that ruling, or she's probably packing? I feel bad now.
No, I'm here. I was just looking it up to get the wording right, and now I can't find it.
That's okay.
Yes, there was the Grange Law or Grange Growth Committee last year asked me to give a definition of board of directors versus executive committee, because our digest 20 years ago now said that the words are interchangeable, but they're really not. I must not have saved that in the right place. Anyway.
I can pull it up on the share screen if you give me a second, if you'd like me to.
Yeah, you can do that so they can see what it says.
Okay.
In the Grange, the membership is who makes the decisions. The board of directors or executive committee, whatever you want to call them, does not make all the decisions for the Grange. And that's one of our basic tenets of the Grange, that every member has a vote. And so that's very important to maintain that. Some Granges want to have a board of directors that makes the decisions anytime, whether it's an emergency or not. The digest and the installation ceremony both say the executive committee can act in the name of the Grange between regular meetings in time of emergency or need. And then there was a question about what is a need. And so I tried to define that in my ruling using the example of if a pipe breaks in the Grange Hall and water's flooding in everywhere, that's an emergency. The board can hire a plumber. If the pipes are springing little pinhole leaks and they need to be checked or fixed or replaced, that is a need. If it's in danger of worse leaks, in danger of damage to the hall, so that would be a need. But if the pipes are all old and you know that they're in danger of leaking, or they're made of lead, or it's not an emergency, then that definitely should go before the full membership of the Grange. That's not a need that can be acted on between meetings. That's a big decision that all of the membership should make.
Does anybody have questions they would like to ask specifically on what she just said, as far as the distinction between need and emergency, and then the expectation to bring before the body? Looks like all of us agree with you, Betsy. That's what I'm going to say.
That's good.
Right. And I think what I wanted to mention was that executive committees, you know, as Betsy's ruling showed, are really there to be that stopgap in between. But Betsy suggested in her ruling, one of the things was you could have 2 meetings a month, for example, or you could call a special meeting if necessary. There is provisions for doing that if you need to make some decisions. In addition, the Grange, as you can see, if you look in your manual, has certain committees that are expected to be either standing committees or temporary or special committees. And so it is possible, if you say that we authorize a committee to make a final decision on something that we have said as a body that we agree should happen. So one option might be, we have bought a water heater and we need the water heater installed, but we need someone to check for bids and prices, and we authorize the committee to sign a contract with the, you know, lowest bidder, or to sign a contract up to $500 or something like that. But that type of both committee structure and constrictions on the committee's decisions should also have come before the body. So it's not just that the committee is like the building committee and they get to make the decision of who they put in, but you've already talked about, we need the water heater installed that's been just sitting here, so the committee can act to choose the one who's going to install it, you know, and pay up to a certain amount or something like that. Am I interpreting that right, Betsy?
Yeah, that's right. I know some Granges, my Grange years ago, used to give the treasurer the authority to pay the electric bill every month. That's, you know, an ordinary expense of the Grange that has to be paid on time. So the membership can vote to authorize the treasurer to pay that without a specific vote of the Grange. Things like that are fine, but the board making big decisions on behalf of the membership when they don't even know about it or have a chance for input, that's not what we do.
So I think why I really wanted to make sure to touch on this, it kind of worked because this was on my list of topics for at some point to cover, that I have over here on my nice little wall, but it worked to make it timely, is to talk a little bit about where committees can both be a real blessing for Granges, because it can allow a number of folks who might have a specialty or a real interest in something to focus on that, and to bring information back to your Grange. And so your meetings aren't 3 hours long because you're having to discuss every little detail. That can happen in committees. But also, we know that there's an expectation of speed that may not have been there in 1867 or 1967. Speed of decisions, speed of being able to put out information and those type of things. And so I wanted to just talk about committees that you may have established or committees that you think might be important to establish at local Granges and why. Because I think as we're talking about how to make sure to be both flexible for a generation of members that will be coming in that expect things to happen at a different pace, but also adhere to our rules and our tradition, our identity as a democratic order, how we can make sure to balance those both. So what committees have you guys seen at your local Grange level that you think are really important to establish, and how have they worked? That way we can share some ideas among the group that's here. Does anybody have committees at their local Grange level? I guess that's a better question to start with. It sounds to me like no one has committees.
I think that we have a youth committee, junior committee, who assist your junior Grange or your youth chairperson. So that's a big job. If you really have an active junior Grange, you have your matron or patron or both of a junior Grange, and they would really appreciate committee support from other members of the Grange. And sometimes it's the parents, sometimes it's the grandparents, and sometimes it's just folks that want to help that junior Grange grow or come up with new ideas or fundraisers. So it gives the director, your junior Grange matron, help that you can call upon and guidance. So that certainly is committees that I've always seen in a Grange that are usually active if you have a junior Grange or a youth. Of course, the CWA committee at the state level and at the Grange level. New Jersey's director, Audrey Planer, wonderful leader, wonderful ideas that she comes up with, but she couldn't get it accomplished without her fabulous committee there. That's there to help her at national conventions, setting up displays, helping her with ideas all year long. So committees are certainly important. Those are kind of standard committees. And then you might have a special committee if you grounds landscaping, if you decide to do something at your hall. You may want to have a committee there because you want to try to please as many people as you can. And sometimes it's better to put those folks that have their own unique ideas on a committee than they feel that they're part of the process, whatever decision might be made. Over.
Liz, Denny from Oregon just mentioned that Waterville Grange has a hall committee. And I think that's a pretty standard one we see. And also, I think this might be where we see some of the most effective work by committees in some places, because a person who calls and says, can I rent the hall Sunday, is not looking for 3 weeks to go by before, you know, the body as a whole decides whether or not to take on a new renter. There's some expectation that, you know, the committee or the chair can make some decisions quickly and vet that person and go through the process. So thinking about hall committees, I think I definitely are hall directors. I definitely think that's somewhere where we've seen a lot of that.
Yeah, Samantha?
Yes, ma'am.
The whole committee is in charge of the building. If we need work done, we have a caretaker that is in charge of renting our hall.
Okay.
Yeah, so he,
So you guys are doing
we don't have anything to do with renting the hall. He
do too. You oversee him.
Yeah, I oversee him, but
He does the database.
but if he has problem, and then he consult me. We are very lucky. He is very, very good, and he has a trailer at the Grange, so we never miss anybody wanting to rent the Grange or miss a telephone call about the Grange. So we're very, very lucky about having a very good caretaker.
Yes. Carrie.
So we have only one big fundraiser each year, but we have an auction committee for our auction, and they can make decisions for the good of the auction and then bring it before the members at the next meeting. For instance, this year, right before our auction, we usually do 4 rings with 4 auctioneers. And the month before we were going to have our auction, the committee met, honestly, 15 minutes before our Grange meeting, and took it from a 4-ring auction to a 3-ring auction because we didn't have enough volunteer auctioneers. So it wasn't something that the whole membership voted on, because we explained to them why we had to go down to 3 rings, and they understood, and they were like, well, that was a good decision. And then we have an auction kitchen committee, and it's not the same people as the auction committee because the auctioneers can't be in the kitchen working. That's the other people. And then we had a free little library committee, and they were able to make the decision. Once we put the committee together, they were able to make the decision of when to purchase the library and how to decorate it and how to get it installed. And so once the Grange made the decision to purchase the library, we didn't have to bring anything else up at the meeting. We just had to take care of it.
Nice. And the other Granges have some committees that they've seen be effective.
We've got our big fundraiser is our strawberry social in June. And our committee, a lot of the stuff they brought to the floor to discuss, but the price is going to be set really close to the event because we don't know what we're going to be able to buy the strawberries for. Mm. So we gave them some guidelines and things, but they have the power to actually set that price.
Okay. And Trisha, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, sorry if I have to put you on mute real quick. My dogs decided they're seeing something all over the outside. No, when we had more members at our Grange meetings, we had a lot of active committees as well. Under special committees and things like that, and we would have a lot of committees. Don't have quite so many as more because anymore because of the numbers we have at our Grange meeting. But yeah, they are effective. I agree with everyone who has spoke about them. They are effective. That you can get a group of up to 3 people, 4 or 5 people together to make decisions, and that's less time you're having to spend in a Grange meeting doing it. So yeah, they do have their purpose. I think they should be continued. I mean, I think Granges that don't use them should consider implementing them.
So I wanted to just talk a little bit about how committees are established. But some of you who are from smaller Granges might be thinking, how in the world do we do committees, or why would we need to? We only have a small membership. We've talked over the past 12, 18 months or so about the fact that there are generational shifts and changes. And one big facet of millennials and Generation Z, or whatever we're calling all of these things now, is that, they've been asked to lead for pretty much almost the majority of the time that they spent in middle and high school. If they went to college, they've been empowered and told regularly that, you can make a difference, and walking into a Grange that doesn't empower them to do can very easily get them to walk out. So encouraging folks to, be part of committees helps empower them to see that, they do have a voice in pushing something forward, and having the Grange spur to action. Even if you have a small membership, establishing a few committees certainly makes Grange, I think, in some ways more appealing as new people are coming in and seeing your meeting for the first time, because we did talk about the fact that it, in theory, can lessen the time spent doing the business, even though there's still good research and good suggestions coming from that committee. It doesn't require every little thing to be picked apart. The committee can report on the specifics and the important parts. And they'll see that you are letting people, take on passion projects or get involved in specific areas that they care about. So even if you've got a membership of 13 now, the idea is not to just, work for that 13, but be building for the future where you have 20, 30, 50 members. So I would certainly say that any of you who aren't kind of activating some of that committee structure, it may be something to encourage your Grange to do. In our manual, you'll see, my goodness, I'm sorry, I'm getting text messages out the wazoo. In the manual, you'll see a listing of committees that are suggested as standing committees. And these have not been the same since the very, very beginning of Grange. I know that because in the very beginning of Grange, we weren't doing deaf activities. And that is one of those reports of standing committees that's expected to be made during a business meeting. So know that your Grange can have committees in addition, like we talked about the hall committee or the auction committee or anything like that that you're suggesting. But legislative or agriculture, or a legislative and agriculture committee combined, is one of the standing committees that is put into the manual. Whether or not you have that in your Grange is up to you. Women's activities, which I would argue I would probably call home economics, or I would call, craft and development, or I would call something other than women's activities, because it has an expectation there that only women are going to care about some of the things that, are traditionally more female arts or home arts. But also there's a lot of stuff in our programs now that are really gender neutral, like your photo contests that often end up in what used to be the CWA or the Women's Activities Committee. There's no real gender issue with that. So you can call that something else as well if you would be interested. But women's activities, the youth committee, the junior committee, community service committee, deaf activities, membership, and others. And the one that's driven me nuts for 12 years now is that communications doesn't have a committee, or public relations, because I think that that's certainly something that every Grange should consider having. So those are the ones that are listed as standing committees. And then it asks you for reports of special committees. So at any time you can create a committee that is only drafted to do something very specific or within a specific time span. So you have those two different things, the one that's going to pretty much always be at work for those of you who have a hall, or for those of you with like an auction, a large project. Those are going to be standing committees, because you'll have that every year. It will be recurring. But then there may be something where you're trying something out for the first time and you'll create a special committee to see if it works. Or you may know it's very time specific. So special committee is there. So how do you establish a committee? Just a couple of facets. In conjunction with the vice president, the president of the Grange will name committees. So obviously every Grange kind of works a little differently. You might do something in your Grange where the president is asking for volunteers for committees. You might have, people who have been kind of drafted for a specific reason through the membership. I've even known a Grange to vote on the committees. Technically, in our bylaws, it is the president's decision who's on the committee, and whomever they name to that committee, at least 3 people, the first one named is the chair. That's at least what our bylaws say. And while, again, you can probably decide that the committee decides who the chairperson is, because maybe somebody says, I don't have enough time for that, but I'm happy to serve. Or they may want 5 people on the hall committee, or somebody with a specific set of skills or something like that. You can determine some of those things. And as Betsy said a couple times recently, that I would just, I think, add, is bylaws for local granges and state granges can be stricter than the national bylaws, just not looser. And so if you decide that your bylaws say that you have the hall committee is a standing committee and you put it in there, or that you have 5 members of your committees, or that the first person named as the chair and the second person named as the secretary for the committee, you can put those type of things in there. But just for your knowledge, the president is the one who would establish and choose the members of the committee. From what I can tell, though, and I don't think this is defined out, but I've heard this enough. Your membership as a whole would vote to establish a committee. So there's some approval that a committee has been established. Betsy, is that correct? Because I was looking all over the bylaws today, and I don't know if that's tradition or if that's in there somewhere that I missed.
What was the question again?
So if we are establishing a committee, standing or special, the body votes to establish a committee and then the president names the members, or does there not have to be a vote of the membership to establish a committee? I feel like it might just be tradition. I can't find it.
It doesn't say there has to be, but usually there's some purpose. Like if the membership votes to hold an event, then the president, vice president appoint a committee to run that event or plan it. Or if you want to buy a refrigerator, there's a vote to buy a refrigerator. And then the committee's appointed to handle that. So I don't think there has to be a vote of the membership specifically to form a committee, but there certainly can be.
Yeah, I think that may just be tradition that has kind of been something I've watched and not in there because I couldn't find it. So there you go. That tells you where you are. You, I guess, could take a vote of your membership to establish a committee, but it doesn't seem as if it's something you have to, and that may be just a tradition in your Grange. I think that's another interesting thing, though, that we don't talk a lot about when we talk about who we're selecting for president of any, division of the order. This is a person who's in charge of naming the committees, and so making sure that your president understands that that's not only part of their responsibility and certainly in consultation with the vice president, but that those committees can be a really important piece of the membership puzzle to make sure that folks know that they're valued, that they have, an opinion and a place in Grange, even if they don't have a sash, even if, they haven't been elected to something. These committees can be almost sometimes more valuable than, the folks who have been voted and elected in the room to certain duties. So making sure that you're working with your president, if you guys are the membership chairs, to tell them that, this is a way that they can engage and involve some of the members. And not every one of your committees has to be something super specific, like a hall, which is a big responsibility, or something that might require background checks like juniors and youth directors, but it can be something like, the county fair committee. For a local Grange, you might want to have a really good showing at that county fair. You don't have maybe a display, or maybe you do have a display, but you want to see your members get engaged and enter different contests. So establishing a county fair committee gets a whole different part of the body maybe excited about doing that type of work and getting your Grange name out there. You can establish committees for pretty much anything, but certainly this is a way to work with your president to see who's in the room or who's on the membership rolls that may not feel otherwise super engaged with Grange, and get them involved. And so if you are a person who has the membership roster for your Grange and you can kind of look down it and see that there are folks who aren't typically coming, or they are there but very quiet, it may be something where you can kind of get ideas together and suggest to your president or your body that a committee be established, and who might really work well on that and become re-engaged. Because it's not just about the new members, but it's also about making the member experience for our folks who are already here a more robust one, and one they're more connected with. So I want to stop there. I want to ask you guys if you have any questions or suggestions or ideas that you want to toss out. Wow, you're quiet tonight. I don't know, guys. It's scaring me. I think like this must have frozen or something. All right, there's giggles. We're okay.
My mom would like me to tell you that at our Pomona level, we try to have one member from every Grange on a committee.
That's smart. Absolutely. One suggestion that I've had for a couple of the Granges that have reached out who are really concerned about struggling or appealing to, they might have a couple new members that have come in and they don't know if they're going to be able to keep them or something like that, is to engage them in committee level work. And so part of it is, even if you've got a large membership of your Grange, you might want to make sure that each committee has somebody of a different generation or maybe a different orientation towards Grange. You know, somebody who's been in forever, they're just going to accept everything Grange has to offer. Somebody who's, you know, newer because they have a very different interaction, a different appreciation for some of our stuff. But it may be good to look at the composition of those committees as well. Danny, what do you think? You've been sitting here so quietly and patiently. I feel like I don't want you to get lost.
I'm good. I'm just kind of taking it all in, learning. At a higher level like this is just newer for me at the Grange, so it's all more just of a learning experience and seeing what other chapters are doing at this point.
Danny, you are new with the Grange. I want to tell you a story. When I was new at the Grange, and a friend of mine also is new at the Grange, we decided to paint the ladies' room. And we bought a new curtain. We were so proud of ourselves. And then when we had our meeting, we were telling them what we did. And one member was very upset because he said that is for the Boy Scout to do, not for you to do. And you know what? It did not frighten Brenda and I. And we are one of the very much involved with the Grange. So don't let anything scare you.
Thank you. I have been a member for a couple of years. I don't know, other than just local small chapter stuff, I haven't really been involved like outside. So this is me just trying to like expand and learn more and see what I can also just bring back to my Grange. But thank you for sharing that story with me.
I think maybe we should encourage her to come and learn all of it by being a communication fellow for Philip.
Hello, Danny. This is Joan Smith from Washington, D.C. Where are you from? And we're so glad you joined us this evening. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Ms. Whitman.
Okay, I'm from New Jersey, the Southern Grange. One of the reasons why I showed a lot of interest in when I saw that we had a membership meeting was when I was in college. I actually ran to be the state membership director for Future Business Leaders of America. So I did that during college. And that's where I kind of got the idea when I saw these meetings. Ooh, I'm interested. This is, you know, especially membership and growth and all of that. So it's part of why I was like, oh, I wonder what I can bring back from my experience doing that in college versus, you know, now. So that's kind of why I've been popping onto these meetings. Why I have an interest as well as just learning. I don't know. What else do you want to know?
Well, thank you, Danny. So you're from Southern Grange in New Jersey on Route 9.
Yes.
And so what do you, it sounds to me like, Amanda, you have a potential committee person at least for membership, since she has a real interest in this, and that comes with some experience in membership. There's a committee.
Yeah, we have some deputies for the regions, and I'm actually looking to fill a few spots with that. But we've talked about possibly not making a one-person job, but making little regional committees, which kind of started a little bit of last year, but kind of have them set aside for now to figure out exactly what works and what we can do without a ton of funding and stuff like that. So that name's on my list, Joan.
Good.
Danny's like, oh, why did I get on here?
Well, no, it's good. I get to know people, and people get to know me, and it's a started step in the right direction.
Absolutely.
I'm very happy about Southern Grange. I was from Farmingdale Grange, which is on Highway 33. They're another Grange in Monmouth County. So we're so glad you're there. You're going to have your summer market outside the farmers market. You're going to have that this year?
I'm not sure exactly what we have planned going this year. There's a lot of things that are kind of in the works right now. I'm not sure how many things are finalized or with the dates yet, because that stuff's still being worked on. I know we've only had 2 meetings so far, since it's expensive to keep up the gas. We do close for a few months. So we were just kind of getting the ball rolling again.
Wonderful.
Okay, so I wanted to take a few minutes to remind you guys of a few things. We have deadlines for contests coming up. I don't know that the decision has been publicized, but the block contest will extend through September. Betsy, do you remember if that's the 1st of September or the 30th?
I think it's September 1st.
I thought so as well, because I wrote one in front of the word September, but that's not normally how I write September 1st. So I was like, what did I do? Okay, so 1st of September is now going to be the quilt block contest deadline. There should be something coming out on that this week. I understand that the rest of the lectures stuff may stay the same, and the rest of the contests and programs that you'll see in our guides will stay the same. So some of those we're lining up this year for the end of June. The reason that was chosen is because it's the end of our membership year. So if you hear us talk about whether or not we had a net gain or loss, in the membership year, it's June 30 as the cutoff. So it goes July 1 through June 30. And it helped us line that up. It also helped us be able to put out, in theory, the programs before all of our large state conventions, because Oregon and Washington like to muck up everything and have their conventions in June or July. So getting the information out to those folks in those states early enough so they can announce it was a really important piece. So you'll want to remind any of your folks who are people who like to enter contests or do different programs that this is coming near and dear for most of those this year. The other thing I wanted to remind folks of was the Communication Fellows program, which I'd gotten the opportunity to run for a number of years, but is in Phil's very capable hands. He is looking for people who are interested in applying. It's a long 8-day experience, but you are able to go to the convention and see kind of a whole different side of how that event works, but also I'll learn a lot about Grange that is kind of in the weeds stuff. Carrie and Susie on here have both participated. So if you're interested in learning more, or if you have somebody who is interested, just get them to get in contact with the folks. And for those of you guys who have been delegates, you know some other faces you could put them in contact with as well. I also wanted to just mention that we have a number of things that we're putting together for the next year for the program and contest book. Obviously, the heirloom program will get dropped into there, and some informational stuff as well as contests. But if there's something that you think would be important or interesting. If you want to pass any suggestions on, I can get them to the different departments or officers. But sometimes you have better opportunities to have contests on your state level than we do at the national. For example, like it's really hard to have cooking contests at the national level because they have to like send a pie in somebody's suitcase and hopefully it doesn't, you know, bust apart and mold before somebody else gets to try it. So just thinking on that level, if there's a contest or program that you want to suggest, just knowing that it's a different scale of things, and trying to make those suggestions something that we can actually follow through on. And then I want to also mention that we have the regional 4 regional conferences coming up. So we have the Eastern Regional, which is not in Delaware, it's in DC, and that is covering pretty much the entire East Coast because we've invited anybody from New England to come down to that. We have the Great Plains, which is in Kansas this year. We have the Great Lakes, which is called Midwest. Yep, I had to get there, which is in Iowa. And we have the regional out in the West Coast, which is in Oregon. They all have fairly similar schedules and their deadlines to register are coming up quickly. So quick reminder about those and that they should be fun to go to. And so please encourage your folks. We talk a lot about, you know, what can you get out of Grange when people ask, like, why should I join? We talk about leadership development. We talk about fellowship on this, you know, larger level, and things like that. We talk about all the contests and programs you can get involved with that might give you new skills or opportunities. And all of these things that I'm kind of reminding you about help to fulfill that promise, because not all of us could do that at the local level. You may not be able to hold a whole program to learn about, you know, communications tactics that will benefit your Grange, but also benefit maybe your company that you work for or another nonprofit you're involved with. Or you might not be able to hold, you know, an event at your Grange where you invite members from 13 different states and get that fellowship opportunity. So I certainly encourage you to encourage some of your members, especially your newer members who might not know what those are, to consider participating or attending, because otherwise we're saying a lot of things that we're not able to do if we're not, you know, cashing in on all these opportunities. So are there any questions from anybody for anything?
Amanda, in the our annual handbook that's coming out in June now, would you, who do I need to talk to make sure that the foundation deaf scholarship program is included in that book? Because I'm not sure that it is currently.
I don't believe it is. I will make sure. Joan, why don't you and I work together to make sure that the foundation stuff comes in on time? I will help you with that. That is not a problem.
Okay, the only thing we have is the Deaf Awareness Program, which is the applications due May the 1st. That's the only one that we have that is any type of an application to be applied for.
Okay. And then Grow Club is technically under the foundation, and they have at least they have for a number of years had an annual, not raffle, but silent auction. And of course, we also have the different community service programs at convention.
And they have the Grow Club has a scholarship program.
Yeah, that one's already in the youth handbook.
Okay, all right.
But I'd kind of like to make sure that the opportunities to provide stuff for like the silent auction or the community service for the convention, there's at least a mention of the fact that these things happen, and then it might be you're going to have to go find them at a certain time of year. But a lot of people who are newer don't know that they could donate an item for silent auction, or they could, you know, get ready to do something with it.
That's a good idea. Thank you.
So I'll put those in there as well. Any other suggestions, comments, or questions?
Amanda, I have a question that's totally unrelated, but I need some information for a trademark case. I need to know if those states that are represented on here tonight, do you know of any farmers or small farmers who raise some kind of livestock who are members in your state?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know
we have some.
Illinois does. And I know Oregon does. What about New Jersey? John, do you have any members that you know of that even chickens would work?
Yes. We have somebody in Myersville that just joined, and he raises chickens.
Okay, good.
And there might be somebody else that it's not coming to mind right now. I think there's probably somebody up in Warren Grange that might have a couple cows.
Illinois,
Okay.
Mary Brumbach.
Mary Bruback is a vegetable farmer, but Justin Schaefer has pigs and cows and chickens. Butch and then up here, Butch Peters raises pigs. Janet Donnelly has alpacas. Yep. The Zines have sheep.
Somebody has cows, I think. Floaties.
The Ploties have cows.
Okay.
I
just need to be prepared with how many Grange states are involved in some kind of livestock agriculture.
Yeah, we definitely have at least 10 to 15 families across the state.
Great.
Do bees count?
I don't think so.
They produce honey.
Yeah, I know, but
they're not, they're atypical.
This is a company that is selling some kind of livestock equipment.
Oh, okay. No, we don't need any fences. We don't want any fences for the bees. Okay.
Betsy, I can think of at least one producer in all the New England states except for Rhode Island. I don't know about, I'm not saying that there's not any in Rhode Island. I just don't know. And I believe that we have producers in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Delaware, New Jersey,
Maryland,
and I don't know about Virginia from what used to be our region.
Mm-hmm.
And then North Carolina, yes. Florida, no. Barbara said. Texas, yes. Oklahoma, yes. Kansas, yes. So probably there's only a couple. There's only a handful that don't.
That's what I thought. We would have some kind of livestock farmers in just about every Grange state.
I know Wisconsin is a yes.
Yeah.
So currently, right now, I do not have chickens because we're going to be re-renovating our yard and our house. But I've actually, me and my family, we've raised chickens for a few years as well. I don't know if that helps for what you're looking for, since we don't currently have them. But
that's fine. Thanks, Danny.
Oh, you're welcome.
What about Michigan? Tricia, do you know anybody?
I think I know more. There are more of the farmers in Michigan are more crop farmers than they actually are livestock.
Chris and Connie have 4-H projects that are live.
They've got some goats.
Yeah.
Are you looking at livestock? What's your definition of livestock, I guess? I mean, because like, okay, Chris and Connie have goats. I think they bred them once, but
yeah, I mean, but goats, sheep, probably rabbits, chickens, beef, pigs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and you're pretty much anything that would go to have like go to a secondary market. Is that what you're kind of looking for definition?
Yeah. That's good. We can count Chris and Connie.
Yeah, because I know a lot of the other farmers in the state are more crop farmers than I'm pretty sure they are livestock. But good job, Amanda.
Tennessee is the other one that I can't think of anybody, but I'm not sure because I don't know much about their membership.
Yeah.
So everybody else, so I think that I didn't mention. Minnesota, I don't know about. I'd have to ask Ann. The map is lighting up in my head.
Yeah. Well, there's the Kelly farm.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so I'm also looking for suggestions from any of you who join these regularly of something that you either think that we should go at again and really try to get more folks to participate in one of these meetings, or a topic that you haven't seen in one of them before. And so you don't have to give them to me right now. Of course, if you think of them, you can, but please send some of those, because obviously our meetings are getting smaller, and maybe it's because the topics haven't been well publicized. And so I would like to get a better schedule also in that program book for next year, where it says, even if it's not the exact night that it's going to happen, but it might say as examples, here are some of the topics we'll hit in this year. Because occasionally when we bring somebody else in, you know, we have to work around their schedule or whatever. So
the Grange Fair program.
Grange Fair program. Okay.
Yeah, that, or youth fair, whatever you're calling it.
Grange Youth Fair. I think that's going to have to be like its own once a month thing at some point, where they're introducing it to people who are interested, because that is becoming a huge thing. But that would be good to bring on here in the evening. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. All right, well then the last thing that I was just going to ask is if any of you have suggestions for people for that membership committee. Last year we had a cultivators committee. John was on that. I don't think anybody else from this room was. We kind of took some people that were off the beaten path of Grange, as I like to call it. And then we took one delegate from each region. And I did that specifically because I figured if any of the crazy ideas that came out of the cultivators actually got to the floor with the delegates and they were like, where in the world did this come from? It wasn't just Amanda as the answer. So cover your butt, I've learned, is a thing. So if you have a suggestion for anybody who might be of good service to a membership committee, this last year we were looking for where were some holes, where were things that we could produce and pretty easily, create useful tools. You saw a lot of brochures come out of that. What were things that we wanted to identify that would be good pieces of knowledge that either we could do on something like this, or maybe we needed to survey out something to learn more or whatever. So we did a little bit of everything because it was letting the committees kind of choose by their region what they really wanted to focus on. This year I'd like to have a little bit more of a focus on making sure we're confirming information that we have on Granges within states. So they'd be helping. And in the big states, we obviously rely on your staff a little bit, but we rely on these people as well. They'd be helping to confirm the days and times of meetings and if there's Grange halls and things like that, so we can make sure that our Find a Grange is up to date. They would be helping get us contact information for someone who would be able to give information about that Grange for us. And some of the states are really good at having their rosters up to date. Other states will admit to you that they have no idea what's going on sometimes in those local Granges. So it's a mismatch. And that's why some of you are rolling your eyes like, why do you even need this? The states have that, but trust me, not all of them do. And then also looking for some discussion about places that we can identify that would be good for us to get a team to go, or some type of approach to put the Grange name out there at certain small events or whatever, and then use that as a model that we could take, whether we create and purchase a couple of, screens that stay in your region, or some items that would always be on tables, display tops or stuff like that. So that's where my hope is that those committees will go this year. So that's what I'm looking for. If you have suggestions or if you're interested, reach out to me. And other than that, that's all I've got for tonight. And we're only like 5 minutes over for a change. It's not bad.
Congratulations, Amanda, on the starting of that new Grange in Idaho.
Yeah, and one in Washington the same day.
Oh, same day.
Same day. And then the next day in Idaho, we found out we have 35+1 juniors that are about to become a chartered Junior Grange. So
wow, wonderful.
So I'm going to tell you guys something. One, because the boss is gone. And two, because I have wood next to me I can knock on. But it looks like we could potentially have a net gain this year. Everybody knock on wood around you. That would be the first time in over 75 years. It has nothing to do with me. It certainly, I think, has to do with the climate right now, that people are looking for organizations to feel like they're connected to their community and know that they're giving back. And the Grange Fair program has helped considerably, obviously. But we might have a net gain. And that's why I was like nervously asking if you had your numbers for me yet. So we'll see. But anyway. All right. Well, if you have anything else, you can stick around. Otherwise, I'm going to turn the recording off and I'm going to bother Carrie.
Good night, all. Good night.
Good night, everybody.